Hello, good morning. I'm here in Tulum, Mexico, and cool background I got. But I'm in Tulum with my husband. We're having a really nice time together. And I just want to share a really cool question I got from a Become Euphoric student about being California sober. So, what the heck is California sober? It's a new buzzword that's kind of going around the internet that basically describes someone who doesn't drink alcohol but maybe partakes in weed or marijuana or cannabis products. And it's an interesting term because it's kind of gaining popularity, especially as cannabis and weed is becoming so legalized in so many different states. And it's like a really natural question to have. So I'm trying to reduce alcohol in my life. What about this other thing, you know? So I'd love to share with you some of takes on this kind of lifestyle, California sober, what to look out for as well, and what to be sure to connect with your deeper why so that you know you're always following your intentions no matter what you choose. So, the old school paradigm of being sober was really one based on you need to be sober if you cannot handle substances in your life and moderate them. It's a funny kind of paradigm because it's like gives this illusion that substances that change your brain state are meant to be moderated and that some people are better at that than others. And the thing is that most of us in this group are not sitting at the bottom of a bridge drinking alcohol out of a paper bag, right? So most of us are not in that sense of like total rock bottom to begin with. And that used to be the danger zone. That used to be like, well, if you're there, then you have to go sober and you can't partake in anything for the rest of your life. The new paradigm says anyone who wants to reevaluate the role of alcohol in their life is allowed to. Doesn't matter what their drinking habits look like. It doesn't matter if they're light drinking habits, medium drinking habits, heavy drinking habits. Anyone is allowed to reevaluate the role of alcohol and decide to not drink if it doesn't make them feel their best. Spoiler alert, alcohol makes everybody not feel like their best. Nobody feels good after drinking the night before. That's just alcohol's effect on the human body. And so we feel so guilty and like something's wrong with us when we don't like the effect of alcohol in our lives instead of actually realizing this is what a toxin feels like in your body. And it's okay to eliminate it and reduce it without having to claim a word, without having to claim a label or have to go to AA meetings or anything like that. Personally, I try not to ever use the word sober because I think it just has so many old connotations. It has so many old connotations about someone who has to give up things for the rest of their life and go to meetings and all this kind of thing. Whereas I personally use the word alcohol free, right? You're alcohol free. You choose, just like you choose to be gluten free or sugar free, you choose to be alcohol free and not partake in this real toxin that actually messes up our body and our brains. So, if you choose to be alcohol free, if you choose to take a break from alcohol, if you choose to live happily without drinking ethanol, what does it mean when marijuana and cannabis is like legalized in so many places? Are you able to partake in that? And like it has to come back to really you in your decisions. Like this isn't a sobriety group. This isn't a group based on like quitting every little vice in the whole entire world that you might possibly have. It's a group dedicated to being alcohol free, right? So it's an actual difference in what your intentions are. So if you have noticed that you use weed in a very similar way of alcohol and you want to just be free of completely numbing yourself and just want to live life present, then that can be your goal. And if that is your goal, then obviously, I've worked with clients who came to me both drinking and smoking at the same time, and they want to be free from both of those things. And so we work on a plan to give them freedom so that they are able to self-regulate and relax in their own ways without resorting to a substance. However, if you come to this group and you want to just be alcohol free, then that's your intention and that's your bigger why, and you have to make a decision about the other things that you will or will not partake in. So I have not drank alcohol in over 3 years. And personally, like I grew up in California, so smoking was always a thing here, especially as a teenager. I'm not like morally against it myself, but I personally get really paranoid and I'm not really a fan of how I feel when I'm high. So I don't smoke myself either. And it's not like a what's it called? It's not like a hard line in the sand where I say I'm going to be sober for the rest of my life. I'm not touching anything. It's not necessarily like that. But what it is I want to always feel my best. I want to always have my highest self coming through. I always want to really allow my emotions to express themselves also so that I can learn from them and make pivots in my life based on what feedback I'm getting. And there's the thing. So, the California sober was what it really means is that you decide to go alcohol free, but you still enjoy smoking weed. And if that is what your goal is, if that is like where you want to find your happy medium, then you get to decide that. It's always in your court. The ball is always in your court. There's no sober police here. There's no definition of what it means to live alcohol free other than being alcohol free. Like that's it, alcohol free, right? Not necessarily weed free. However, I want to share with you a few caveats that might come up if you do choose to also smoke or use cannabis. Obviously, now it's not even necessarily smoking anymore. There's like little microdose like gummies you can eat and all that different stuff. But I want to share some with you some caveats so that you can decide for yourself what lifestyle you really want for yourself. And again, this doesn't have to be black and white. You can experiment, but really understanding these three caveats could help you decide what you will choose to do. So, three caveats to watch out for if you do choose to engage in cannabis. One, I mean, just a precursor to that, like marijuana compared to alcohol, like there's almost no comparison. The way that alcohol affects your life, the way it affects your brain, the way it affects your chemistry, the way it affects your physical body, the way it takes such a huge toll, it is literally like a crude chemical toxin that we ingest. Marijuana just does not have such serious negative consequences as alcohol. Like so that's just a given, and if resorting to that is better for you than drinking, probably it's going to be a lot better in your life as well. However, I'm going to share with you these three caveats to watch out for so that you ensure that you're really abiding by the intentions you want and designing the kind of life you want. So, first of all, is just recognizing that we use things outside of ourselves to numb our emotions. We use things outside of ourselves, like drinking, to numb our emotions. And what happens is, say you have a stressful day, you decide to drink over it, and then you never get to the root of the stress in the first place. So it's almost like you're living in a Groundhog Days loop, like a hamster wheel, where every day you're getting stressed from something, and then you use alcohol to try to relieve that stress, only compounding the stress and making it worse. You never ever address the source of the stress. And so the same thing can kind of happen when you use something else outside of you to relieve a source of stress, like marijuana. So if you always smoke to relieve the stress of the day, you're never actually getting the root cause of the stress. And the thing is that our emotions, even stress, even frustration, even disappointment, even negative emotions, are trying to teach us something. So the whole point of going alcohol free, in my estimation, is not because you have a clinical substance abuse and you have to leave behind alcohol and never touch it again. It's so that you can design a life that you love and you can step into your bigger dreams. And you do that by having to face your emotions. You do that by having to face your emotions and learning from them. So if you're not satisfied with your life, if you're feeling stressed on a daily basis, guess what? There is a root cause there that you need to address. If you feel stressed and disappointed and frustrated and negative emotions every single day, that's a sign to you that your life needs to change, that something about your life needs to change. If you get in an argument every single time you deepest intuition and your deepest sense of like connection with your highest self. If you're always numbing that, you're never going to get the creativity and the inspiration that you need to chase your bigger dreams. This group isn't about just quitting alcohol. In fact, if it was, then that would be the tagline of the group, like quit alcohol, right? It's about going alcohol free and becoming euphoric. It's about going alcohol free and chasing your bigger dreams. So if you get into a pattern of always numbing your emotions, you're also numbing your connection with your intuition. And your intuition is what's going to guide you with inspirational ideas, with creativity, with nudges literally from the universe about what your next step in is life. It'll also like want to give you something to do because when you minus drinking out of the evening, you also have all this freed up mental time and energy. And that time and energy literally will probably best be used spending it on necessary to go find them. So that's just like a general caveat to watch out for. Like I said, this group euphoric is all about being alcohol free, not sober. And so deciding what that means for you is personal, and deciding whether or not you want to like engage in cannabis products, that's totally personal. And it has to be aligned with your own kind of intentions and your own nudges from your own higher self. But if you're always using something to numb and to like help you relax or to de-stress, you might literally be also numbing the creative forces of your own life force and your own creative nudges to help you design a life you love. So, I mean, I fundamentally believe that almost each and every one of you has a book inside of you. I fundamentally believe that maybe each and every one of you has a business inside of you. I fundamentally believe that each and every one of you has a purpose inside of you that you're meant to step into, a purpose that will make you feel more passion and joy and love and excitement and will actually really, really contribute to society and the generation that is, leaving, that we are leaving behind. A purpose that you can step into when you really get present with yourself, when you really touch in to your deepest longings and desires and really have done the brave often don't allow us to get into that state. And you know what? We engage in behaviors that numb us all the time. So is it like a black and white thing? Not at all. I mean, you could binge watch TV all evening, every evening, and do the kind of the same thing about numbing yourself. So there's no black and white line here. There's no like, here are the vices you can't do, here are the vices you can do. It's not like that. It's just a personal choice to discover how you get to really show up the way you want to show up most in the world. Now, Katie says this is the best explanation I needed to help make a decision. It's super, super personal. Like I said, and I just want to preface again, there's such a big difference between alcohol and marijuana. Like, it's not even goes to say which one has more negative consequences in your life. So choosing to engage in marijuana is completely a personal choice, and it's completely up to you and how, what your actual intentions and goals are. So there's no like black and white territory here. There's no line in the sand of which vices are good and which ones aren't. If anything, I will happily say that smoking marijuana is a lot better for you than drinking. However, my caveats. The first one, like I shared, is it could still be a mechanism that you are using to numb your internal urges, needs, desires, longings, all of those things. And if you're numbing those, then you're not able to then create the dream life for yourself that you wish because you're not allowing those nudges to help guide you. And so if that's happening, then that's just something to really consider and take a look at and also experiment with as well. The second caveat is a lot less big of a deal, but I'll just share it because it's just super scientific and it's good to know. So alcohol reduces your REM sleep cycles. One glass of wine will reduce your sleep cycles by, we usually have 5 to 6 REM sleep cycles every night, and one glass of wine will reduce those down to 1 or 2. So drinkers, in essence, could be getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every single night and still be super undernourished in their brains because they're not allowing, their body's not allowing them to go into REM sleep. While weed has completely different effects on our bodies and is way less toxic and takes much less of a toll on our bodies to kind of process, they do have studies that show that weed also does reduce our REM sleep cycles. So if getting really nourishing sleep is important for you, it's probably really good to make sure you have some days off or weeks off of weed to make sure that you still have the time to nourish yourself and get the sleep that your brain makes. And, falling into a habit where you're doing anything that's like a vice every single day probably isn't the best for you. So it's probably best to have certain kind of limits and restrictions around it. Like, okay, I'll do this on the weekend, or I'll only do it on these kind of occasions. But just knowing that it also reduces your REM sleep cycles can be super helpful because if it's something that's starting to be engaged in every single night, you might be losing the sleep that you really, really desperately want to feel less stressed in the day to begin with, right? So these are the things that kind of happen. We live these stressed out lives all the time, but we never actually take a look at the source of the stress and really regulate our parasympathetic system on our own. We look at for outside things to do it for us, which don't often really work quite as well because they're not addressing the root cause and they might also have side effects. The third caveat I would say just to weed is that when like I said, it could be numbing your emotions as well. It does lower your REM sleep cycles. And the third one as well is just like not following into a pattern of, again, feeling like you have to check out of life sometimes. Like life is too hard to bear, and so you check out and play small. Instead of really deciding that you're the creator of your life, you are the person, not the manager of your circumstances. You design your life. You have the agency to do what you want. If life isn't so fulfilling and we look for things outside of us to make us feel better, what if we stopped that at the root and we actually made our lives more fulfilling to begin with? We actually had natural euphoria. And so that's the thing, is that all kinds of drugs, alcohol included, will change your brain neurochemistry. They affect the pleasure centers or certain neurochemicals in your brain and kind of hijack them, and they'll release certain things because you're ingesting them and taking them. What this ends up doing is that it then changes your natural pattern in your brain. And so we know this from alcohol very clearly. Every single time we drink and we release a huge spike of dopamine in our brain, it then lowers the natural amount of dopamine we're able to experience in our lives. So if something else, another substance, is also hijacking the pleasure center of your brain, that just means it's going to take that much longer or even be like less of a benefit to experience your natural euphoria. Trust me, our brains are wired to give us natural buzzes. Our brains are wired to give us natural neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin and endorphins and oxytocin that we're supposed to feel, that we can tap into. And when our brain is hijacked by these different like substances, in essence, it could take longer for that rebalancing to happen. So that's just the third thing to look out for. So the three things to look out for is ensuring you're not, using anything as a numbing behavior, knowing that it still affects your sleep, and also that it could take longer or be less of a dramatic process to start engaging and feeling your natural buzz. And feeling your natural buzz isn't just like you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, I feel amazing today. And you might feel like that. Feeling your natural buzz also comes from being an active agent in your life and being an active player and doing the things that make you happy. Our actions are what causes our feelings and our states. And when we just wait for happiness to arrive, it usually doesn't work that way. When we just wait to feel better, or we just wait for our natural mood to feel better, it's like waiting for, someone to give you the law to create the lives that make us feel happy. And if obviously I was earlier talking about maybe bigger situations that you want to like change or shift around, but even in the day, like little things that make you happy, be intentional about including them into your day. So what makes me really happy? Gratitude journaling. I mean, there's no faster way for me to change the state of my brain than to focus on gratitude and the things that I'm really, really grateful for. Gratitude journaling, meditating, journaling and just connecting with my higher self, listening to really good, feel good music and dancing around, looking up at the sunset or the stars or the moon. Those things make me happy. Having really deep conversations with the people I love, things like brushing my skin, eating a really good vegan meal. So here are just these ways that we can prime ourselves to feel happy every day. And it's a state that we can, we don't wait to become happy one day because we luckily wake up into it. We have to decide today to create happiness in our lives. We are active agents in our lives, and it's only up to us to have the feelings that we wish to feel. And so I have another video where I share about biohacking your neurotransmitters, your happiness neurotransmitters, that can give you some other ideas of just simple things in your day that you can do to prime yourself. But I just want to share a quick example with you. So I arrived in Tulum on Saturday. I've been here. I'm going to be here the whole week. And right away when we got here, one of our credit cards was used fraudulently, and like 2,000 charges were made. And so right away we get on our vacation and we find out that our credit cards were used fraudulently and like $2,000 have been like taken from our account. And so right away there's feelings of frustration, anger, like a feeling of justice, like this isn't fair, like oh my gosh, all this bad stuff is happening right away. And all of those feelings I could allow to completely sour my vacation. In fact, I had to remember to choose to feel grateful in those moments, to choose to remember, oh my gosh, I'm in Tulum. This place is beautiful. The credit card stuff will be figured out. It's no big deal. To choose happiness in that moment instead of letting the overriding thing that happened in that day kind of take over my state. Every single moment we're allowed to choose. Every single moment we're allowed to decide what we want to feel like. And there's different tactical things we can actually do to prime ourselves that way. So I would recommend forming a little toolbox for yourself of different tools that you can use to change your state. Some great ideas are always putting on a feel-good song and dancing, doing some gratitude journaling, going outside in nature, having like a lovely like bath or just me time to yourself, or doing something that connects you with your highest self and the beauty of living in this magical playground, in this beautiful universe that we live in. I'm looking out right now and I see ocean water, I see the sea grape like jungle forest in front of me. I'm in a hut right now. I have this mosquito net behind me. Like, life is beautiful. And even if you are, stuck in an apartment with a few like pets and people around you, you can find beauty there too. Our lives were meant to feel gratitude and joy and passion and excitement and adventure. And if we're not, that's great. That's a wake up call to ask ourselves, how can I create those feelings in my life? What needs to be changed? What needs to be shifted? And so those are like the eternal questions. And as you kind of shift with different vices and ways that you relate to the world, you'll find that you naturally grow and evolve and become the person you want to be. But as long as you're growing yourself, as long as you're really pushing your limits of who you want to be and having the bravery to step into that person, I truly believe that you will find the freedom and the euphoria of living alcohol free and chasing your bigger dreams. It's not a black and white definition, like I said earlier, about whether what you choose to engage in, and especially since it's so legal nowadays, we really all have to come to our own conclusions about what we will engage in. Like I said, marijuana is such a less vice than alcohol when it comes to its effects on our body and our neurochemistry, and so it is up to you and personally deciding where you stand on it. However, I did want to share with you the three kind of things to look out for so that you have the ultimate choice and intentions going forward. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I cannot wait to see you next week.